Now, thank you so much for being here. I know before the break, it's always a tough spot because people already think, oh my God, I want to have a coffee, I need to wake up. But I want to challenge you for the next 20 or so minutes to leave your technical head at the door, because I'm sure that your head is buzzing by now with ideas and new approaches, what we can take back to the team or how we can work with our clients. And then probably the next question comes alive, but how do we actually get the buy-in? How do we get the funds? How do we get the team and the people behind making things work? And the one answer is authority. But I want to challenge you how you think about authority. Because currently, when you hear the word authority, what comes to mind? You probably have your own idea of a situation, a person, or an event that is about authority. Usually it's something like that. Do it because I tell you to do it. Like the moms, they can do it. That's all right. So I was really curious what the real definition of authority is. So I did what every sensitive millennial would do. I Googled it. And this is the answer. Or not. It's good. That's okay. So basically authority, according to the Cambridge dictionaries, the power or right to give orders, to make decisions and enforce obedience. Now that's good. And it worked in the traditional hierarchical organization, in a very centralized institutional economy. But the world has changed. And what we are seeing more and more is that organizations are shifting because the economy demands it. We see flatter and less hierarchical organizations. And we're going from command and control to being more collaborative. And maybe you've seen that already yourself, that you don't necessarily have the ladder to climb up to get the title, to then influence and then create change. And I always say, we are literally just right at the beginning of what we call the next world of work. It's not the new world of work. Like, we're not going backwards anymore. Especially the pace of change is picking up rapidly. Now, I'm running two businesses. One of the businesses does recruitment. On Friday last week, after 24% of their entire staff have been let go, a candidate messaged me out of the blue with a shopping list, what he's looking for. He's got 5 years experience. Yes, it's software engineering, but 135K plus and 5 kilometers within the city. And the shopping list just went on and on and on. And I have started in recruitment 8 years ago, and I saw the shift from an employee-led market to an employer-led market to back being an employee-led market. And talents are rare. And this is literally only the beginning why companies and leaders have to rethink, how do we show up, how do we attract and keep the best talents. And the biggest challenge here is also that 77% of executives believe that over the next 5 years, full-time employees and full-time staff are going to be significantly replaced with gig and freelance workers. And we see that already now with organizations who have to fill skill gaps, that they are getting contractors and consultants in to fulfill the project. And maybe you are a consultant or a contractor, and you don't necessarily have the title that you can influence or that you can create change, but you still need to make things happen. So this is exactly what we're going to see even more and more. It was all about do so because I tell you so, I'm your boss, the command and control approach, to now working within teams, being very vertically integrated. But nowadays, we have a lot less structured networks. We're working horizontally, which means that we need to find a way to lead and develop our skill sets in a different way, and also how we can build our authority in a different way, beyond the title. Because otherwise this happens. We are going to pitch to our department and we think we get the buy-in, and then we just get the whatever you're talking about. And we have lost already credibility and with that authority. So what it means is the future of leadership, with or without the title, is all about the ability to influence and to create those informal and formal networks beyond the title. This is a very important distinction. Now, what it means that we are seeing the shift from being the traditional leader and the technical expert, because we've got the expertise, the years of experience and the credentials, we are moving into the trusted authority category. And that also means that there are 3 big shifts that we are seeing. The first shift is about identity shift. We were usually promoted because we had all the answers. Traditional leadership was all about that. Even in school, I repeat or I say 1 + 1 is 2, and you repeat 1 + 1 is 2. It was all about having the answer, and this is how we got rewarded. Nowadays, with this very complex and very quickly changing world of work, we cannot have the answers. It's about asking more questions. The next shift is a mindset shift, meaning how can I progress and have the power and then influence people? How can I empower my teams, also when they are below me? And the final shift is a paradigm shift. And it goes from having all the knowledge and all the credentials in this world from IQ to EQ. And we're going through all those shifts, what we can actually do about it in just a second. Because I got really interested what it takes to influence beyond your job title and how to not only survive but thrive in this fast-changing world of work, where we know that about 85% of jobs that we will have in 2030 don't exist yet. So I wrote a book last year. It was all about the trusted authority. It got published on the 1st of December, and it got me into a very research world of what trust is all about. Anyone has ever heard of Rachel Botsman? If not, that's one to follow, because she's the first fellow who researches trust at Oxford. And she defines trust as the confident relationship with the unknown. I'll say that again, and if you want to write that down, I think it's a mind blower. Trust is the confident relationship with the unknown. And if we think about our roles in organization, implementing technology and digital solutions that we haven't seen before, it's all about how can you be trusted that you do the right thing by us. So in the context for today's next 15 or so minutes presentation, I also want to create some common language that we know what is the difference between an expert and an authority, and why should I even care? Now, an expert is somebody who knows a lot. They've got usually a lot of loose knowledge and acquired over years, and that's great. They are able to do the doing, jump in and solve the problem. Now, an authority, however, is somebody who can take it up a notch and can explain how they can solve a problem. And I'll go through more in detail how you can get started straight away. So for the visual learners of us, this is the explanation between the expert and the authority. Loose ends, we know a lot, we know how to solve a problem, but when it comes to articulating it, having the language that we can get the buy-in from others, it crumbles. And this is exactly what the authority is all about. Now, when I work with my executive clients who want to build a personal brand and we want to find their unique position that stands out in the market, my one advice is always, what two worlds can you connect? Think of Steve Jobs. His two worlds that he connected was technology and innovation or design. Brene Brown. Anyone heard of Brene Brown before? She is all about shame and vulnerability. Now, she hasn't just started as an author. She started in academic research, and she has published a gazillion of white papers on shame and vulnerability. And she could have left it there because she was already successful. She was the expert in doing the research, finding out those new nuances of what leadership is all about. But she didn't stop there. She took it up a notch and became an authority by translating her insights, her academic insights and research results into commercial language. So business leaders are now able to use her insights for their own world. So she's become this translator. And especially in a technology world where we throw out a lot of jargon and abbreviations, we need to think, how can we become the translator, especially when we have to pitch to commercial-minded decision makers? So the question is, in your current situation, your current role, in your current positioning, who do you relate more to? Is it Steve Wozniak, the brain behind Apple, or is it Steve Jobs, the face behind Apple? The difference is exactly that. Steve Wozniak was not known at all. Over the last probably 8 years or so now, he's building his profile more and more. And I got to meet him a couple of years ago at a conference, and he always said, we have talked about simplicity way before it was a thing. And it was always that we did already, but we couldn't actually articulate it. Steve Jobs was the first one who could articulate what we actually wanted to do. And that was such an eye-opener that he was able to translate what the team is actually doing, and he could translate it to us buyers, that we bought an iPod that was never seen before, and we bought an iPhone that was never seen before. So he could make it relevant to us decision makers. So the question is now, okay, I get it. How do I now go about increasing my influence with or without the title? It actually does not matter. The one answer is that. It's all about trust. Because having years of experience and the credentials, that's great, but it's the currency of knowledge. Trust, however, is the currency of influence and the relationship of the unknown and being confident with the unknown. So trusting that you do the right thing by me. However, having said that, trust is contextual. Now, what does that mean? Simply having a driver's license and we are able to drive a car doesn't mean that we can drive a bus. That makes sense. Simply that we've got a cybersecurity degree doesn't mean that we can look after cybersecurity for an entire state. So what the first step is for us, technical experts, it's about becoming the translator and focusing on 3 aspects. Firstly, we need to translate our capability, meaning what is that we want to stand for? What's the promise that we want to make based on our credentials, but also on our characteristics? I'm sure you've worked with people who have got all the knowledge, have got all the credentials, and you still didn't like them, you didn't respect them, you didn't buy into what they were saying. I've had those one or many experiences before. And it was not because they were not capable of doing it. They were highly capable, in fact. But I couldn't resonate with them. They often also didn't do what they were saying they were going to do. So they immediately lost the trustworthiness. And this is the first pillar, capability. The next part is then credibility. How can I create a connection between you and me? IQ, EQ. And then also how can I show up consistently? Especially nowadays where we work remotely, our window where we can actually make an impression, where we can connect with others is shorter and shorter. So that means that our online presence, and that can also be an intranet online presence, needs to be consistent with our offline presence when we do meet somebody in person. And the final part is all about visibility. And I know, working with a lot of technical experts and being the biggest introvert myself, being visible is quite a scary thing. But it's not about being everywhere, and it's definitely not about being a celebrity or an influencer. No. It's about being strategic with our visibility to the right people for the right reasons. And I'll show you actually how we can become visible without having to be everywhere, because we don't want that. Because in the end, this is exactly how we can create influence. It starts with being clear about what we can bring to the table and what our promise is to others. So when others understand it, it becomes a ripple effect. So we can not only influence our smaller team and department and organization, but we can influence an industry and create a movement. And this is the exact approach that we take when we work with companies. It always starts with the individual, the trusted authority. Whether it's a consultant, whether it's a technical specialist, how can we help them to clarify what they can bring to a table, their unique strengths, their unique weaknesses, that we can complement them, but also that they build trust in themselves. I just said before, 85% of jobs in 2030 don't exist yet. So having the trust in yourself that you can pivot, that you can use your transferable skills and create your own commercial opportunities, that's exactly what helps us to show up in a bigger way. So once we've got that, it's then all about creating trusted leadership. How can I create consistent behavior across the team? And how can we match promise and performance? Now we've got the team and we've got the individual sorted. Now it comes down to culture, because it's not so much then how we feel, but also how external stakeholders feel about us. How can we attract the best talents? How can we keep them? Creating a culture of trust is exactly the answer. Okay, now I promised you to give you very practical tips and steps. And this is exactly those 3 steps. If there's nothing that you have taken out from this so far, Now it's time to wake up. Because, as I said, it all starts with you. So you want to start with clarifying what is my competitive advantage? What is it that I want to stand for? What is the profile that I want to build around me? And this is so important because of this insight that Einstein already identified, that everyone is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, they will always think they are stupid. And this is exactly the same with us. We can progress, but eventually we might fail. Peter's principle. Has anyone heard of Peter's principle? We progress and get promoted because we were so good, but all of a sudden we are at a level that is completely outside our natural skills and strength. And all of a sudden it feels like pushing up a rock uphill. It's hard. It means that we are not in our natural high performance zone. We are not able to articulate it. And often we're drifting in a job because somebody taps us on the shoulder and says, you are really good at that. You should do X, Y, Z. Curse of competence. That also happens a lot. And like it or not, no one is as interested in our progression and success than we are. So what can we do about it? We can sharpen our value proposition. What can we bring to a team, to an organization, to an industry? And it starts with you being firstly the translator of your credentials. Based on the education and experience that I've had so far, what are those transferable skills that I want to be known for and hone in on? Is it about being creative, being the innovator, for example? It's not about I've got this degree and I've got this award, because that doesn't say much. The next step is your personality, because we can have exactly the same degrees, qualifications and awards, but how we do what we do, that's our secret sauce. This is what gets people to buy in or not. And finally, this is probably the most important translation that we need to make here, is what are the changes that I can create based on what I can do, my skill set and how I do it, my mindset and my tool set. Nobody is interested in you if you're not interested in them. This is exactly why we need to translate what's in it for them. So once we know that, it comes down to connecting the dots, making sense. I'm sure you've all heard the importance of storytelling. And I know this is a big, fluffy word, and it doesn't mean much if we can't actually put it into practice. So now it comes down to becoming the translator. I said before, there are a couple of examples, Brene Brown, Steve Jobs, even, who else would it be? You will see the connection when you pay attention to it, that the big guns, the big authorities, they are connecting two worlds. So the question is, which two worlds can you connect? It might be that you come from a different educational background, and rather than hiding it, we want to feature it. We want to see how we can actually bring a different lens to a problem or a solution. And use storytelling, even the simple phrase, so you know how? Well, this is exactly what I do. So you know how it's always so hard to get the buy-in for blah, blah, blah? Well, this is exactly what I do. In fact, I just did. So this is a little storytelling phrase that you can use to get buy-in. So you know how? This is exactly what I do. In fact, I just did X, Y, Z, social proof. So think of what kind of words can you translate? Who is your decision maker that you need to get on board? Otherwise, we get that response, whatever. In a second, we are boring and people are switching off. We are not being remembered, and somebody else gets the promotion, somebody else wins the contract. So how do we go about that? We want to shift from it's all about me, I've got this years of experience and I can do X, Y, Z, to them, whoever them is, our decision maker. And this is why I said before, the paradigm shift is now an important part. It's all about shifting from my credentials, my years of experience, to what's in it for others. How can I position myself to be a problem solver, not just the problem creator? There are a couple of tips. So if you want to take a screenshot, do it now, because I only go through 2 of them. Very practical again. How are we going for time? Okay, we're right on time. Firstly, I mentioned before, we are going through 3 stages. This is actually a communications hack. I don't like the word hack, but there is no other word that you can use for it. So today we're going to talk about A, B, and C. So what we just discussed was A, B, and C. Simply sticking to 3 takeouts is a massive communication cut-through in meetings, in presentations, in trainings. So you want to talk in threes. Even iterations would be great. My company is called impaCCCt with triple C. The 3 C's are there for a reason. It's about clarifying, communicating, and commercializing your value proposition. People remembered it, and all of a sudden it becomes their language. And this is how we can multiply a message. And the other tip that I want to give you, don't shoot the messenger, cut the technical jargon, especially when we're not talking to commercial decision makers. Because what happens when we throw technical jargon at somebody who doesn't have that background, how do we feel? We feel silly. My partner is in the army. I went to a function the other week, and they just threw acronyms and abbreviations at each other. And I was just standing there, and I left after 40 minutes. I was like, I get out of here. Every now and then I heard a hi and an end, but that was about it. I did not understand a word. So I felt silly. So obviously, I didn't like them. So we don't want to be in this same position. And then lastly, this is an important part, we now need to become visible. We are moving from a knowledge economy, which was all about credentials and degrees and years of experience, to a relationship economy. Knowledge has become available. It has actually become a commodity. You know, universities, they were a very centralized institution. They also regulated who could study and how many could actually attend university. And now what we've got, YouTube, we've got Coursera, we've got LinkedIn Learning, we've got access to free or very small paid fees courses that we can actually upskill. So our real crux is relationships. And this is where too many get stuck, especially the introverts amongst us. You might be resonating with that. I'm definitely going to hide for the next 3 days because I'm a massive introvert. Having said that, we don't want to stuck in the high capability corner and nobody knows of us, because we can be the best and still not get recognized for being the best. And in the end, we are in digital and technology and innovation because we want to make an impact. But if no one knows of us, this is exactly the type of impact we can make. 3 people, and one of them is probably our mom. So how do we go about it? A big takeout is this: networking is working. And I'm so glad that you actually came to the conference in person. It's a different feeling, isn't it, than just sitting in front of a computer and we can't interact with each other. I know, everyone says it's not a billable hour, I can't attend networking events or any other excuse. But this is exactly where commercial opportunities actually happen. I've been here this morning and I got 3 clients already. 1 big company and 2 individual clients. If I wouldn't have made the trip, I'm from Brisbane by the way, these commercial conversations wouldn't have happened. So take this opportunity and be strategic about it. How do we go about being strategic? It's about becoming the connector of people, of projects, departments, because then you are the one who people are talking about. Think of who you can connect from your own network with each other that can benefit from each other. Because I promise you that it will come back, not just 2-folds, 3-folds, but 10-folds. You will always be the person people are talking about. So when an opportunity comes up and they say, so we are looking for XYZ, do you know of anyone who could do that? Or actually, Jimmy or Sarah, they would be perfect for it, simply because we are top of mind. It's a simple hack, again, that we can use no matter how busy we are. It could be a 5 minutes investment in LinkedIn and connecting people with each other. I think you've got great synergies. I'll leave it over to you to chat further. That's all we need to say. Easy as that. So to wrap things up, because I know we're right on time, this is the one takeout, that titles are given. You know, there's still very hierarchical organizations that you've got the tenure and you get promoted, but trust is earned. How do we shift and make create the influence? Is by having those 3 steps. Being the translator of your credentials. What is my capability that I can do? What's the promise that I want to make and be known for and be trusted for? And how can I support it with my performance? Then we boost credibility. How can I create this connection? Through using storytelling, through using common language, and also be consistent with how I show up. If I'm walking in a room, if I show up on a Zoom meeting, if I'm posting, how consistent is your presence? And the final part is being visible. Become the connector, become the value creator, because this is where you move from having a message and you know you can make an impact to creating a multiplier effect. And eventually this creates a movement within your team, within your department, or within your industry. And that's a wrap. Anyone who wants to learn more about how you can make this shift, scan it, it works. And it's a very practical workout that you can actually work through those stages and shifts that you can make straight away. Thank you very much.
Thanks, that was great.